The whisper in the night. The prairie was quiet that night, except for the rustle of dry grass in the breeze and the creak of old leather harnesses as the wagon settled into the earth. Eli Turner had driven his team hard that day, pushing through the long stretch between Dry Creek and the next trading post. His plan was simple: stop just past the canyon, rest the horses, and continue at first light. He wasn't much for stopping in towns anymore. Too many questions. Too many faces looking at a man who didn't want to be seen. He rolled out his bedroll under the wagon, as he always did, with his rifle resting nearby. The stars were sharp overhead, and the air crisp with the promise of autumn. He was drifting toward sleep when something made his eyes snap open. A sound. Not coyotes. Not the hoot of an owl. Softer. Human. Breathing. Then he froze. A muffled cough. His hand slid for the rifle, heart hammering. He rose silently, boots crunching on dry dirt, and ducked his head beneath the canvas flap of his own wagon. Moonlight spilled through a tear in the fabric, just enough to show the shapes inside. He wasn't alone. Huddled in the corner, curled together like frightened animals, were 4 children. 2 boys, 2 girls. The oldest couldn't have been more than 12. Beside them, half hidden in shadow, was a woman. Her arm was wrapped around the youngest child, but the other arm. Eli's gut tightened. Blood. He smelled it before he saw it. The woman's sleeve was soaked dark, her face pale even in the moonlight. He stepped back, unsure if this was real. His wagon. His supplies. His space. How had they gotten in without him noticing? He almost spoke, but before he could, one of the children stirred. A boy, maybe 10 years old, blinked up at him with wide, terrified eyes. His lips trembled before he whispered, so soft Eli barely heard. "Don't kill us." The words stopped him cold. He could have said 100 things. Could have barked at them to get out, or demanded to know what they were doing. But he didn't. Something in that boy's voice, hoarse, desperate, shaking, reached a part of Eli Turner he thought was long dead. He lowered the rifle. "I ain't gonna kill you," he said slowly, voice rough. "What are you doing in my wagon?" The boy didn't answer. None of them did. They just clung tighter to their mother, whose eyelids fluttered weakly. Eli crouched, setting the rifle aside, and finally got a clearer look. The woman's wound wasn't fresh. It was a gunshot, maybe a day or 2 old, packed with rags already dark with dried blood. Whoever had done it hadn't finished the job. Eli swore under his breath. He'd seen wounds like this before, back in the war. He knew what came next if it wasn't treated. The youngest child, a little girl with tangled hair, whispered, "Please, don't take us back." Eli frowned. "Back where?" The children exchanged quick, frightened looks but said nothing. Their silence told him enough. Whoever had left them like this wasn't someone they wanted to return to. He stood and lit the lantern hanging inside the wagon, careful not to startle them. The light revealed more, their faces streaked with dirt, clothes torn, feet blistered. They had been walking for miles before crawling into his wagon. The woman's chest rose and fell shallowly. She was on the edge. Eli scrubbed a hand over his jaw, thinking. He didn't want this. He didn't want anyone else's problems. But as he looked at the kid's hollow eyes, he knew he couldn't throw them back out into the dark. "All right," he muttered, more to himself than them. "You're safe for now." The oldest boy, still clutching his little brother, swallowed hard. "You promise?" Eli met his gaze. "I don't make promises I can't keep. But I won't let anyone hurt you tonight." The boy's shoulders sagged with a relief that cut Eli deeper than he expected. He fetched a flask of water, some hardtack, and tore strips from a clean rag. The kids hesitated, but hunger won, and soon they were nibbling in silence. Eli knelt beside their mother, checking the wound more closely. Infection was already setting in. "This ain't good," he said quietly. "She needs real help." The boy's eyes flicked to him. "Can you fix her?" Eli hesitated. Once, long ago, he'd been a battlefield medic of sorts. Not by choice, but because someone had to. He'd stitched men up, patched bullet holes, and watched plenty die anyway. His hands still remembered, even if his heart wanted to forget. "I can try," he finally said. The children held their breath as Eli worked. He cleaned the wound with what little whiskey he had left, ignoring the way the woman moaned faintly. He stitched it as best he could, every prick of the needle pulling him back into memories he'd rather not relive: smoke, screams, the smell of blood. But when he was done, her breathing steadied, just a little. The children were watching him differently now. Not just with fear, but with something closer to hope. He hated the way it felt. Hope was dangerous. It made people think you'd stick around. When he finally leaned back, exhausted, the boy whispered again. This time, not out of fear, but something else. "Thank you." Eli didn't answer. He just doused the lantern, sat back with his rifle across his knees, and kept watch. Because something told him whoever had driven this family into his wagon wasn't far behind. The riders from the ridge. Dawn broke sharp and golden over the plains, painting the land in long shadows. Eli had dozed in short stretches, always waking at the smallest sound. The children stirred inside the wagon as the first rays of sun lit their faces. Their mother still slept, fevered but alive. For now. Eli fed the horses, his mind running restless. He didn't know their names, didn't know their story, and he wasn't sure he wanted to. Every mile he put behind him was supposed to be one more mile between him and his past. But now he had 4 pairs of eyes watching him like he was the only wall between them and the world. As he packed the wagon to move, the oldest boy climbed down, small fists clenched. "We can help," he said. Eli studied him. The kid's eyes were hard for his age, like someone who'd already seen too much. Eli sighed. "What's your name?" "Jacob." He pointed at the others. "That's Sarah, Ben, and little Ruthie. And Mama's name is Anna." Eli nodded slowly. At least now they weren't strangers. He glanced toward the ridge in the distance, where a thin trail of dust rose against the horizon. His gut tightened. "Riders." "Jacob," he said, voice low, "get your brother and sisters back in the wagon. Now." The boy didn't ask questions. He just obeyed, shepherding the younger ones inside. Eli checked his rifle, then the revolver at his hip. 5 men crested the ridge, their silhouettes clear in the rising sun. Armed. Looking. They reined in when they spotted the wagon, their leader raising a hand. Eli's pulse quickened, but his face stayed cold. He'd dealt with men like these before. Hunters, raiders, the kind who thought everything they saw belonged to them. "Mornin', friend," the leader called as they approached. He had a scar across his cheek and eyes too eager to be trusted. "Mighty fine wagon you got there. You seen a woman and some brats runnin' this way?" Eli didn't move. "Can't say I have." The man squinted. "That's so. Funny thing. Their tracks lead right here." One of the others smirked, spitting tobacco. "Bet they're hidin' under that canvas." Eli's jaw flexed. "Ain't nobody here but me." The leader's smile didn't reach his eyes. He nudged his horse closer. "See, I think you're lyin'. And I don't take kindly to liars." The wagon was silent behind Eli, but he knew 4 terrified children were holding their breath. He could feel it like a weight pressing on his back. He kept his rifle loose in his grip. His voice, when he spoke, was calm. Deadly calm. "Then maybe you ought to turn your horse around. Nothin' for you here." The leader laughed, a harsh sound. "Or maybe I take a look myself." He nudged his horse forward another step. Eli moved quicker, rifle raised, aimed square at the man's chest. The air snapped tight. "Don't," Eli said. The men stiffened. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then the leader's smile faded. His hand hovered near his pistol, but he didn't draw. "You got grit, I'll give you that," he muttered. But you can't protect them forever. They belong to us." Eli's voice was ice. "Not anymore." The man's eyes burned with a promise. But after a tense silence, he jerked his reins, wheeling his horse around. "We'll be back," he called over his shoulder. "Ain't no runnin' from us." The riders disappeared back over the ridge, dust trailing behind them. Eli lowered his rifle slowly, muscles tight. He knew they'd return, maybe with more men, maybe worse. Behind him, the wagon flap lifted slightly. Jacob's face peeked out, pale but determined. "You scared 'em off." Eli shook his head grimly. "No, son. I just bought us a little time." The boy swallowed. "What do we do now?" Eli glanced at the horizon, the endless plains stretching out before them. He could turn them away, leave them to fend for themselves. But as he looked at Jacob's eyes, the same eyes that had whispered, "Don't kill us," he knew he couldn't. He tightened the cinch on his horse, voice steady. "Now we run. And we don't stop till I figure out how to keep you safe." And as the wagon creaked forward into the rising sun, Eli Turner realized something he hadn't felt in years. For the first time since the war, he wasn't just running from his past. He was running toward something worth saving.